Hello everyone, I Riya Pahuja from Economic Times welcome you all to the webinar Leveraging AI to Build Intelligent Supply Chains. The supply chain is the lifeblood of retail industry. The current pandemic has changed consumer behavior and supply chain management, thereby compelling organizations to dynamically change how they operate. Besides, weather patterns have always been a strong impact on the retail business. In this webinar, etretail.com, in association with IBM, will talk about how to effectively use artificial intelligence to predict, disruptive, and increase visibility in the supply chain. We will also talk about the best practices needed to be kept in mind while deploying and sustaining AI in the supply chain. For this very topical discussion, we have three eminent speakers from the industry. We have with us Mr. Shashank Rao, Industry Leader Retail, IBM India Client Innovation Center. Rao comes with global retail industry experience of 20 years and is accountable for growth and managing the business. Rao comes with global retail industry experience of 20 years and is accountable for growth and managing the business with different clients in different stages of strategy, maturity, and priorities. Next up, we have Ms. Priyanka Telang, AI Solution Architect, OMS and Supply Chain Solutions, Expert Labs, IBM India. Telang has over 16 years of experience in web technologies, performance testing, and tuning and scalability for software solutions. And last speaker for this session is Mr. Himanshu Goyal, India Sales and Alliances Leader, IBM Weather Business Solutions. Goyal is an entrepreneurial leader with a track record of building and leading high impact, high performance organizations in new markets and delivering growth. Before we move ahead, I would like to inform all my dear attendees to drop in their questions and doubts in the box provided. We will be taking all the questions at the end of the session in our Q&A round. Without any further delay, I now request our first speaker of the session, Mr. Shashank Rao, to please take this forward. Over to you, sir.
Sure, thank you, Ria. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending this. And I think there has never been a point in time in retail wherein we have seen such large-scale impact. And over the next few minutes, I will share with you with respect to, from the vantage point that I sit, I get an exposure to a lot of the global reactions, global panic, and global preparations that we are seeing across a variety of retailers across the world, covering across apparel, home, specialty, jewelry, grocery, etc. Right? And however, most of these regions, most of the formats actually been coping with the pandemic challenge. So having said that, I think one of the things that we are very clearly seeing is across the globe, we have always seen retailers at a mixed level of maturity that could accommodate and respond to disasters. Disasters pretty much are more local in nature, and then you have the ability to flex across to alternate solutions. But I guess it's the first time where we have seen in an organized industry of retail and even in the informal organization, the pandemic has been global. It's affected everybody and it's disrupted to a very, very large sense. And we've seen a lot of the panic. We have seen a lot of the responses coming across. And there has been so much debate about, are we getting returns on online? Are we looking at new avatars of stores? Should we spend more offline? And I think this also opens up a lot of the conversation and to the new normal on how exactly both need to sustain well together and supplement each other. And having said that, I have put in a few examples here with respect to what we have observed and seen. If you look at more from a geography perspective, we have seen apparel companies in the US actually looking at how to cut costs, a lot of inventory management problems, not dissimilar to what we see in the rest of the globe. We've also seen with respect to grocery spikes in volume, a lot of inventory control measures put in very quickly, both into the digital solution side and also to the physical store side. And if you look at some of the retailers like Limited Brands, American Eagle, I think a lot of cash flow challenges that we are coming across, a lot of acquisitions that were in progress having been stalled. And we've also seen the big box retailers like Walmart actually doing 70+% more online, introducing more neighborhood shoppers, and a lot of innovation at the tactical ground level that is happening. Surprisingly, we've seen Kroger actually continue with promotions and making sure that the experience still stays the same. And we'll also talk about some of the examples where we have seen some of these clients actually be very relevant during the pandemic times. Going down into Latin America, we have seen Falabella quickly opened up a lot of the local store network onto its platform so that it can get more access for the customers and the retailers, both themselves and the unorganized sector also. Going into Europe, we have seen a lot of the fashion retailers cutting down, canceling orders, looking at reinventing their inventory, and towards the Middle East, where we saw a lot of the mall traffic, mall footfall, we are seeing a lot of the digital velocity coming up, right? So a lot of the AR, VR tech, how do you still give the experience of the mall to the customers? How do we stay relevant to the customers? And how do we define the new normal when it comes back? And closer home, we've seen examples of we've seen new launches of online apps being done very quickly. The Kirana has become even more relevant to the ecosystem and the economy, and we're seeing the relevance of those partnerships could possibly become stronger. And of course, going towards Australia, we're seeing again a lot of the partnerships. Last mile is a big challenge, and how do you actually get partnerships going in the last mile? So a lot of mixed reactions across apparel, grocery, home uh, that we are seeing, but then definitely the disruption is definitely leading to a new normal in the supply chain itself. Now, when we actually come down to the supply chain, I think where we have seen the supply chain is there was a lot of appetite and spend towards trying to optimize to being just in time, more from an inventory level, right? And then how do we actually get move towards solutions of being just in time? And I think given the pandemic, we are also seeing is there now probably equalization that we need across multiple parameters. We are seeing a just-in-time model, like somebody said in the industry, that can we go into a just-in-case kind of model? And we're also seeing nuances of concentration of the supply chain. So should I do sourcing strategy of China, or is it China plus one? So we are also seeing appetite of from a lot heavy offshoring to a mixed bag of reshoring plus offshoring. And if you look at some of the parameters here, I think we are saying there are challenges that we are working with clients and addressing the market, which we'll cover later, is how do I give you more visibility into predicting demand, right? And what is it that we can bring together to do that? And second is to say, with the visibility, do I have the ability to physically manifest some of the decisioning and actions? And there are constraints around that. How many warehouses do I need? More smaller warehouses across, or do I need big warehouses and multiples? And how do I use the store to use as a fulfillment agency? And is there merit in doing that? What is the cost for that and the relevance for that? So I think we are seeing multiple of that. And then, of course, in terms of the supply networks, we are saying, do we give retailers the ability to quickly onboard more suppliers or recalibrate suppliers and volume and velocity as required? So we're seeing some of these key themes emerging within a lot of the retailers that we are speaking to, both locally and globally. And having said that, a few examples to deep dive. We've seen Woolworths actually double up in terms of its delivery capacity to a lot of local partnerships of uh, the taxi companies, and then going forward, giving dedicated shopping hours to the elderly and disabled. Home, basically, like an IKEA example, or a Home Depot, we saw a spurt in a lot of home activity. And to a very interesting and surprising and shocking fact was 15,000 people visited the IKEA store when it actually reopened, and caused a lot of issues of safety, health, etc., even for the employees. So, are we prepared for a volume fall like that when we actually open up stores? Something to think about. And I think what we are seeing with the likes of Kroger is how do I present myself into the economy and ecosystem? They're actually open sourced, shared their learnings on how they have coped up with COVID. We have launched and worked with Kroger to launch a lot of the internal applications for employees to know which store has which issue. Did an employee actually report a temperature issue? Should we actually close down the store? Can we look at more hygiene for the store, etc.? Right? And contact center volumes have increased. So a lot of phone calls to the contact center. And we also work with the likes of Kroger to see if can we look at automation and AI for the contact center itself and redirect a lot of the calls away from the human agent to the AI agent. And we've been fairly successful in that. And the likes of Nike, more in terms of outdoor sportswear, athleisure. How do you stay engaged with the customer? Some things to look at. How they have continued to digitally engage with a lot of their customers. Look at fitness programs, and of course look at how do I make my store contactless. So a lot of thoughts going around in some of these clients that we see. And what we are typically seeing as a part of the curve that we forecast is the first 30 days has been panic, 32 to 60 days has been recover, but we've seen economically a lot of the impact on non-essential items significantly going down. And we believe that, or we probably forecast that, this is probably a normal that's going to continue for the next 3 to 6 months. So what are the kind of actions that we could help and work with retailers to do? What we say is for the 30 days, which is all about employee safety, hygiene of the store, how do we help you prepare? And of course, for things and action that you need to be grappling with and reorganizing your spend, your allocation of finances and budgets accordingly. And the next 3 to 6 months, we're seeing a lot of the digital velocity. We're seeing a lot of the clients actually saying, can I up my inventory onto my online channels? Can I fulfill more from stores? Can I get more visibility, both in terms of orders for the customer and inventory within the organization? And then going forward, we believe that the new normal is not going to be like the old normal. And I think based on some of the decisions that happen in the next 3 to 6 months, we're actually seeing that this is a point in time where the pandemic has been a leveler for many of the retail clients, maybe barring one of the two or three of the big box, is to basically be able to reinvent yourself and be able to go back into the market in terms of a value proposition that is relevant to the context, that is flexible as it moves. Because I think one of the things that we all will struggle with for the next 12 to 18 months is, will the pandemic go? How will it stay? How will the new normal look like? What will it mean to a lot of the demographics and migrant workers that are moving within the country locally for us? What does it mean from an urban population in terms of the spend that they will have? There is a lot of economic challenge within a lot of the industries, what that will mean in terms of spend. So I think there are a lot of let's say ifs and buts as we go into the next 3 to 6 months and beyond. And how do we organize the spend to be flexible, the agility within the organization to move accordingly, and how do you use a lot of the data in motion as it comes across, and how do we navigate it? And so to help you with that, and what we have done is to look at what are the things that we can give you for the next 0 to 30 days, next 3 to 6 months, and then later. And I think what we're trying to bring together is today a lot of the challenge we are seeing is because a lot of the decisioning capability, ability is within the local enterprise data. And if there is a way we could bring about a lot of the internal data actually becoming more intelligent with external data. Second is, how do you then organize it for better consumption? Third is in terms of how do you actually deal with both structured and unstructured data within the enterprise and unstructured data outside of the enterprise. And lastly, in terms of how do you actually deal with static data and data in motion. So there are a lot of parameters here, and we know the ecosystem and the economy is in a disruptive mode that is going to be continue to be dynamic. And is there a way that we can bring in some of these elements together and AI as an option to be able to help you with a lot of the decisioning and planning for that? And I think we are organizing it in terms of, first, can we give you the visibility? Second is, can we help you with the decisioning? Third is, can we help you with the monitoring and the measurement? And that is where I hand this over to Priyanka to bring about a lot of the AI work we're doing in the supply chain space specifically, and see what could be of relevant both tactically in the shorter term and strategically in the longer term. So over to you, Priyanka.
Yeah, thank you. So hello everyone, and today we saw a lot of challenges that Shashank mentioned, and let's start with a poll and see what all challenges do you guys relate to in your day-to-day operations. So can we run the poll, Ria?
Sure, ma'am. For this poll, we ask our attendees, the question is, in current scenario, where do you see maximum disruption in your supply chain? The options are demand volatility, inventory fluctuations, logistic constraints, or supplier onboarding. The attendees have 30 seconds to answer the question. Ms. Tilak, while we are waiting to have inputs from our attendees, can we please have your thoughts on the question here? What do you think the answer will look like?
Yeah, I think as Shashank mentioned, there are different retailers and facing different challenges. So I'm sure some are facing with the demand going suddenly low, and some of them, they are not able to handle their demand. So basically, it's just extremes in the current situation. And obviously, inventory fluctuations are something that generally will happen. And of course, the logistics constraints and the supplier onboarding is also something that is related to what is happening around the world today. We have limited resources, we have limited visibility, and for our demand to be met, we are not able to, find out the alternate suppliers and, get them to start ASAP to give us the inventory. So these are the challenges, and I'm sure everybody is facing different amounts of those challenges. So we would just love to hear your views through this poll.
Sure, let's have the answers. So we have our inputs with us. 43% go with demand volatility, 20% go with inventory fluctuations, 34% go with logistic constraints, and only 3% go with supplier onboarding.
And that's how we had imagined, right? So
Yes.
demand volatility is more of really the context that is right now in today's environment. And so, but the common thread that we see here, right, what it is, it's our restricted ability to really react to such sudden changes or disruptions and fluctuations in the supply and demand. So, and we just realized it in today's world now, in at this moment, that, and it's going to stay for some time. It's not going to go away with COVID, and it can appear yet again with different kind of situations, different events and catastrophes, right? So what is going to survive is actually a resilient, flexible, and an efficient supply chain in the long run. So let's move on to the next slide, where I will discuss the foundation principles that we should rely on and we should start building for our supply chains. And the key components that we need to imbibe in our day-to-day operations is first and foremost is enhanced visibility. By visibility, I mean we need a single pane of glass through which we can see the end-to-end operations of the supply chain, of course, in a business metrics perspective. We also need to understand how these crucial elements of the supply chain, which are interdependent on each other, like orders and returns, shipments and couriers, obviously the returns and demands and customers, they are all connected to each other, and we should be able to understand the relationships between these. For example, how our inbound shipment delays are going to impact our inventory levels, and how sales or demand consumption is going to drive the procurements. So this is something that we need to establish as a principle in our supply chain, and also establish a process that can proactively identify disruptions and intelligently map its impact. So not just predicting what is going to happen, or give us an idea about any impending event that is going to impact our supply chain, but also map it to what exactly will be impacted in our entire chain of operations. And lastly, because we need to build a customer centric supply chain, we should be able to mitigate the known and unknown risks by having intelligent insights added to all of this information. So how do we go about doing that? So we move to the next screen where I'll introduce you to the AI powered control tower. We need to build an AI powered control tower. And I'm sure that we have heard a lot of different buzzwords spreading around the control tower in the last couple of months. We have heard cognitive supply chain, self-correcting supply chain, inventory visibility control tower, and now this one. But all of these are more or less the same. And I will try to pull those disconnected phrases together and bring it to a context. So let's try to build this supply chain intelligent control tower in order to fight our challenges. So what are the 3 building blocks required for a successful realization of this control tower? The first one being the capability to proactively monitor. And what do we monitor? We monitor those critical elements of our supply chain that I was talking about from a key business metrics perspective. It could be loss of sales due to inventory shortage, cost of your overage inventory, cost of your expedited supplies in this high demand environment, or delayed inbound shipments per location. These are some of the business metrics that we could monitor. And this information is very insightful, but can be achieved by data correlation. Now, when we see there is a lot of disparate systems running at the back end in your supply chain, it is important for us to commingle and correlate the data that is being stored in these systems, and like ERP, warehouse management systems, transport management systems, and all of this data into a data lake. So another set of valuable information comes from, and we can keep clicking, Shashank, sorry. So another set of valuable information comes from the multi-enterprise business networks we can see at the bottom, that is supplier or 3PL courier systems. And they are providing real-time information. They are providing us shipment updates, information about your inventory across your network through inventory visibility, and real-time food temperature updates from your IBM Food Trust network. So these are the MEBN systems. And of course, all of this information is also highly dependent on our external events like weather, if there is any strike or in your location, or market trends, which can quickly throw out all our plans out of whack. So it's imperative that we also monitor these event streams and assess their impact on our crucial supply chain elements. So for example, for a warehouse disruption, how could that impact our order fulfillment in a region, or a pandemic that can impact our sales span, which is already doing so right now? And the frequent stockouts, how do we prevent that? And how does that impact your customers' SLAs? So as we keep on adding this information, we do get better insights. And last but not the least is our advanced analytics, right? And that is where AI comes into picture, where the AI models run on the commingled data that we have given to them to enable intelligent predictions and optimizations and simulation. For example, demand spike prediction, which is due to pandemic or any other weather events. If we are predicting if there is going to be a demand spike next week or next month, optimized sourcing location to keep all the costs low, your procurement cost low, your sourcing cost and transport cost. So there are models that could optimize that. And out of stock predictions, they are very, very valuable, and we've implemented some of these for customers. And also when we were talking about, customer relationship for the fulfillment for the retailers, there are models which could predict the customer lifetime value and, the propensity of a customer to return a particular product. So return propensity of an item. These are the AI models and some example AI models that would add a lot of value to these insights and build intelligent insights for us to consume. So here it plays an important role in enhancing predictive and optimization capability of the control tower. Let's move to the next one. The second step is basically analyze. So after we've set up our enhanced visibility and monitoring with external events and commingled data, we should be able to clearly call out the impact on the current business metrics. We should be able to drill down to the exact problem and explore enough information for us to be able to decide or enable easy resolutions. So root cause analysis is the second block to build a control tower. It uses cognitive data inquiries, where you could use natural language to ask questions and explore the data from multiple systems, quickly access that relevant data that is needed for your decision making. And finally, you could also collaborate online with the various stakeholders before you take a decision. Like you can contact the alternate suppliers in case of a stock out and find out if that supplier is ready to expedite some supplies for your location. So it is a very important aspect where you can get access to relevant people amidst your decision making. So some of the questions that you could ask is which suppliers are affected because of this situation, which customers do I need to inform, do I need to look for alternate sourcing, and these becomes very easy with the cognitive inquiry capability, and conversational AI plays an important role here. And the last block, that is a third one for a control tower realization, is decision making. Can we move on to the next one? Yeah, so we've seen that we can use advanced analytics techniques to gain insights and to weigh the pros and cons. And we need to trigger corrective actions in these transactional systems in order to correct and resolve certain situations that we've been informed about from the control tower. And then finally, with all of this, we also need to build a knowledge repository where we can continuously learn from these situations, how we resolved it, what decisions we took, what actions we took in different transactional systems, and all of that will be used to give us future recommendations on what to do. So all of this, the three building blocks that we discussed for a control tower, most of the capabilities that I discussed are lying with the supply chain insights offering from IBM. And couple of these will be covered by those external components where we need to integrate with the external events and get in AI to enhance this prediction capability. So let me talk about in the next screen the different components of the IBM Sterling Supply Chain Insights offering. It comes with the Operations Center, which will give you the monitoring and the dashboard capability, also defining your KPIs and correlating your data. Second one is the Resolution Room, which will enable you to do cognitive inquiries, ask Watson, explore information, also have access to different stakeholders on a real-time collaborative environment. And while at the same time learning from all of this conversation, which is going back to the playbooks, and it will create a playbook for you to have it handy in the future. The supply chain business assistant is again a conversation assistant that is there at the back end to help you resolve, help you from a natural language conversation perspective, and also is a machine reasoning agent which kind of understands this whole context and the terms that are there in your supply chain. It already comes pre-trained with that, so that it helps you to get your next best action. So what is the next step that you need to do in order to resolve an issue? So that is an introduction of the supply chain insights. Now let's see this concept in action with a small video, a storyboard that we've prepared for you, where we will see the supply and demand planners are able to get disruptions alerts, and then how they resolve the situation quickly using the IBM Sterling Supply Chain Insights Control Tower. So Ria, could you please play the video? And how we saw that our demand planner was alerted with a disruption, and how she could really manage to get the expedited supplies quickly. And let me just so moving on to the next one, we saw how the control tower we could build and how we could add intelligence. But I would like to know your views on how to make a control tower intelligent. And this is my view. And we will have a poll after this, which will ask for your views. So my view is that unless we do a data correlation, we'll not be able to gather any intelligent insights from your disparate systems. That is first and foremost. Second is we need to have the external events into consideration, where we could get an impact of those into our daily operations and how it impacts our crucial elements. Conversational AI, it is very, very handy to actually explore data and information rather than looking at multiple reports and navigating through multiple screens to get information what we need. So it's very easy to ask Watson, show me the demand plan for next month, rather than actually clicking a few screens to be able to get that. And then continuous learning, which means every time I do not need to go through the same drill of resolving similar situations, and anybody else could, if they join new, or if it's they are in a separate department, they could quickly resolve the issues as well. And the prescriptive approach is one that makes it really intelligent, because once it learns what it needs to do, it could start recommending and prescribing with the next best actions, and that will be a machine-led process rather than depending on each individual person's resolution approach. So let's go to the poll and see what are your views, and we have some pointers where you will be able to point out whether it's a cognitive action or not.
Before we launch the poll, some things to mention. Cognitive activities are mental processes through which we make sense of the world around us or get to know or experience our environment. Examples of cognitive activities are reasoning, thinking, perceiving, decision making, listening, or observing. On those points, the poll question here is, which scenario is an example of a cognitive activity? The options are monitor and flag low inventory at various locations, alerts when a supplier consistently delays shipment, ask a virtual assistant in natural language about orders, alerts when sales plan has a deviation of more than 30%.
So they all sound similar, but we need to really rule out which one is not cognitive over here.
Though we have heard your views, Ms. Telang, some more color here.
Yeah, so the first one, it's just flagging low inventory. Second one is, and I cannot see the poll. And some of them are really monitoring and alerting, and taking into consideration all the other aspects or the related elements as well, and then flagging the issues. I hope everybody gets it right, because we just discussed what makes it intelligent.
Sure, ma'am. I guess we have the inputs here. So the results look like 26% go with monitor and flag low inventory at various locations. 20% go with alerts when a supplier consistently delays shipments. 29% go with ask a virtual assistant in natural language about orders. 26% go with alerts when sales plan has a deviation of more than 30%.
Okay, so let me tell you the answer. The first one, that is flagging low inventory, is just rules based and it doesn't really need any intelligence or cognitive. And the last three are actually cognitive activities.
All right.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. So what I'm going to show you now is just a version of the control tower, which is more based on inventory KPIs and inventory related information that we would like to see and control. And what we have done is, from a Sterling perspective, we have all the offerings of Sterling Order Management, Sterling Order Optimizer, Sterling Inventory Visibility that provides you real-time inventory information across your network of inventory. And these are SaaS-based offerings, and they work together in tandem. And then we have built this inventory control tower over these offerings. And pretty much the control tower concept could be realized with any other offerings or systems at the backend. But this one we have built with IBM Sterling Inventory Visibility. Also have got weather feeds from IBM Weather Service, and shipments visibility from Sterling Order Management. And you could get your real-time information from 3PL networks like TradeLens or Project 44 or any other supplier collaboration network as well. And then we've used some machine learning models as well to add some intelligence here. So let me show you a quick demo. Sorry. So this is our Sterling Supply Chain Insights dashboard, which I was mentioning you about the Operation Center, where you can define multiple KPIs and also your custom KPIs, your business metrics, which you want to monitor. I have created two dashboards here. One is a supply planning and one is a demand planning. Supply planning actually consists of any stock out situations, or if there is any stock overage that is happening across your locations, any delays in purchase order supplies or purchase orders leading to overage. That is a very crucial information where there is no demand, but there are a lot of open purchase orders that you may want to cancel or modify. So this is kind of a holistic view of what is happening in your supply chain. And you could there are around 40-50 KPIs that are already built in, and you can build in more as your data permits. So let's go to demand planning, and you can also get alerts if if you see a demand deviation or any KPI going over a threshold. So here we can see there is a demand deviation due to the weather forecast or the weather situation. The demand has a spike, and any external event that is causing this, it will give you an alert here. And you can see these feeds from the weather or any other external events you would want to get in your solution. So if a user, a planner, or an executive personnel wants to drill down to a particular alert or a particular KPI, he should be able to filter out in different terms where exactly that problem is. So we can see that on the node or this location 221, the demand deviation is the highest. And like we saw in the storyboard, the demand planner could actually open a resolution room from here and then ask different questions to explore what is the real issue, what is the related impact of that issue, and then how to resolve it as well. So recommendations would also come in from Watson. And here there's already a resolution room that we had opened up earlier. That is what you can see. And you can also ask Watson after you open a resolution room. Add multiple collaborators if I want to add suppliers or any other store manager or any supply planner here. I could add them to this room. And let me just quickly type in at Watson. I'm just trying to find out, because there is a demand deviation, do I have any stock out related situations because of this alert? So I just simply ask Watson rather than pulling out a report or finding a report that will tell me that information. And this is what I get. Watson has given me some information where it has sorted the top 5 records according to the earliest stock out date, where I can see that this is the one that is going to go stock out very soon. And then when I say show me recommendations, or what could be my recommendation to resolve this issue, so I get a good explanation on why there was a demand deviation and what is my recommendation. So what are my different actions that I could do? Either I could place a transfer order and it will tell me which DC to actually source it from, and place a purchase order either from a supplier. So all of this, and also it is giving me another recommendation to increase my safety stock to prevent any such situations in the future. So this is for the resolution room, and we can also see the playbooks where it has created a playbook for the demand deviation. And let's see, when we analyze the room and create a playbook, it kind of analyzes the conversation and creates a steps for which it can recommend in the future. So you need to check for stock out next time. If there is a demand deviation, you can check for alternatives and you can place a purchase order. So this is something that Watson has come up as a playbook for any other user next time facing a similar situation. Watson will be able to use these to recommend. Now, other than the existing operation center that we had seen, the dashboard of KPIs, you could build your own dashboard here, which we've tried to build along with, cognitive inquiries as well. So here on the left hand side, you could pretty much ask any questions and you can build different dashboards as you go. So let me show you one of the inventory control tower dashboards that we built. Here you can see on the top, these are the KPIs that I as a user am interested in, and you could have user-based dashboards. So I'm interested in actually knowing the stock outs and my demand forecast accuracy or inventory underage. Now I select which item do I want to see the stock for in my map, and then I can see different locations on the map. And I click on that and I get a whole inventory, time-phased inventory plan for that particular SKU. And I get what is available stock on hand, what is the total demand, what is my safety stock for that particular SKU. And you could also see it in a table view. And this is something that you can build with this supply chain insights platform the way you want. Now, going to the demand forecast accuracy, if I'm interested in this, I could find out for the SKU that is in context, and that is what Watson remembers. It will give me that item and across all the nodes and what is the demand forecast picture looking like. Also, because it's an inventory control tower, I should be able to get a visibility of my shipments which are currently delayed. And this is also showing what is the weather impact for these shipments that are delayed and why are they delayed, and also some recommended actions based on the previous learning that it has done. So these are my shipments, current shipments, and what are delayed on the map. And similarly, you can ask questions on the left-hand side also based on this. Now, let me show you another view that we have built for shipment visibility. What we have done is we've taken the external data or the corona data or the COVID map of US, the data that was available, and plotted all the suppliers that were impacted and all the shipments that were impacted due to that. So here you could see based on the corona data, we have put in and located all the shipments, and whether they are delayed, they are in red, and the others are in green. So based on the past performance and the external events impact, what are those shipment details, and what could be the ETA or estimated delivery date? So there are AI models that are kind of taking the historical performance and also trying to predict what could be the date. So you could choose which customer shipments you would like to visualize. What are the delivery date range you're looking at? Whether you want to show only the shipments near a particular location, etc. So these are the different data feeds that were coming into supply chain insights, and how our existing data of shipments and orders are impacted due to these. That can be plotted and can be embedded into this. So this is all I wanted to show from a demo perspective. And then I would wrap it up with a slide here, which is the most important. So IBM is making our key supply chain offerings available to you at no charge for 90 days. And these are the 3 offerings that you can see on the screen. One is the Inventory Control Tower, which is going to be out very soon. The IBM Sterling Inventory Visibility, which will help you get a real-time information and monitoring of your inventory across your network. And the Supply Chain Insights with Watson that we just discussed, which will kind of bring all your data and supply chain elements together and give you a visibility and intelligence on your supply chain operations. So go to this link and to find out more about these offerings. And then I'll hand it over to Himanshu. Himanshu. Himanshu, I think you are on mute.
Am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, you are.
So thanks, Priyanka and Shashank. I think I learned a lot about supply chains today, and thank you for bridging what I'm going to talk about. So very interesting. Good afternoon and good morning to everyone who's on the call, and thank you for joining us during this time. I hope this time was spent valuable with valuable inputs from our colleagues. So Priyanka, could you move to the next slide and we could talk about weather. So we heard from Priyanka and Shashank very interesting thing about how to manage your supply chain, get your suppliers on board, and variety of things which may look natural when you do any business, but it becomes unnatural because if something like COVID strikes, if something like Amphan cyclone comes in. With COVID, we all focused on essentials, including the government. So the good news is that milk and other veggies and all the essential food items were not stocked, so there was no panic per se. But in reality, how could people manage those supply chain is is a bit of a challenge to understand. While we did see, and we are seeing even continuously, this has been the first time there's a growth in prices for some of those essential items. I mean, so it's interesting how some things can not be planned right when things strike, but you can have an outlook. And the key in our business is you sort of look at improving the timeline of reaction from business to ensure you arrest the price change, you ensure that your customers do not go away from you in case the price is increasing and so on. So weather plays a very important role, and I think with the weather company at IBM, which got acquired by IBM 4 years ago, what we're really trying to do is, tell our customers whether it's digital, it's reliable, it has higher probability of, forecast, so that when you're planning for business, especially in your supply chains, we can look at real impacts which could happen right in a current time scenario. Let's say if there's a market where you are and there's a storm which is going to strike, we know people will not come out to buy for at least few hours. And then planning for futuristic weather at a hyper local level also becomes really important. So weather does affect businesses and supply chain. In all this past times, when the climate change was not really affecting us, in reality, people planned basis the gut, basis the stable seasons. But today, weather is just not predictable anymore. And so with tropics and the climate change, there are really, really big surprises which happen. And these surprises are not of intermittent rain or change in temperatures, but they are slightly drastic. You can have a cloud burst, you can have high humidity, etc. So one has to watch out to this new dimension of planning your supply chain. So Priyanka, can I request you to move to the next slide? So what we do at Weather Company is we help optimize the retail process. You heard from Shashank and Priyanka on how to build those systems to alert you on time for a variety of things which you probably would have not noticed in your natural busyness of business and the other priorities. But we start from understanding the consumer better. So weather affects all of us, mentally, health-wise, how we feel, what we do. So do we understand the customer well and his or her behavior during a weather change? And then how do we alert those omni-channel operations with that change? So the shopping experience may just change. I mean, if there's a good weather outside, you would want to go out for a picnic, and you may not want to have your pizza served indoors. So you rather have packageable snacks going outside. So those omni-channels have to be well adjusted basis what the weather change and the weather forecast will be like. Let me just give you an example. So there's been always this anxiety on when the lockdown in India will be open. So today, for example, I didn't see any queue in the two markets. I live in Mumbai, in Powai area. So the DMart and the High Court didn't have any queue, which, by the way, had 2 hours of queue all the times I visited. So there's no anxiety. People know markets are opening up, supplies are available. So look at the difference. Now today, all these places were overstaffed or regularly staffed, but they were not required because there's amount of people which go in and there's no long queue, so that there's not needed. So a lot of this augmentation of your resources, which may include air conditioning, which may include staff, and by the way, it may today include amount of sanitizers you may need to ensure that people are well sanitized before they enter. So that omni-channel operations plan, and of course distribution and supply. How are your vendors available? Are they supplying vegetables today in that quantum volume which may be required in those marts? So there is definitely every place you can tweak these things and look at what the reactions are. So we'll quickly move to the next slide, Priyanka. All right. So this is a bit of an eye chart, but I just want to tell you that in earlier days, and this is what we also feel when we talk about weather to clients, people normally believe that whatever is the forecast, do opposite it, will be all life good. So, but that's changed. We've really gone down to digitizing weather to an extent that no one in the world does it better than us today. So we invested in IBM Graph, which is the world's biggest cloud-assisted supercomputing system, which is doing an hyperlocal forecast at a 500 by 500 meter on ground. So we can tell you what the weather is at your doorstep, at your place you buy, and the path you will move to your purchase and buying or selling place. Now, with that, what happens is that with this rich data, there's a lot of planning one could do. So if I'm into logistics, if I'm into producing, if I'm into agriculture, if I'm into energy and utilities, there are a lot of data sets which we produce, which are complemented by, the business you're going to do it. So just to give you an example, now we talk about supply chain, we talk about demand. Now think about energy and utilities. Now that may not require what Priyanka and Shashank talk about, but just how would your DISCOM plan for a weather event which might be high humidity, low, mid-sized temperatures, average temperatures, but very high humidity. That means the AC load will go up, the geyser load will go up, and that's when they have to get alerted 12 hours before so that they don't buy expensive electricity from the market to supply to you. So very different use cases. So this chart really tells you how these data sets are put into the omni-channel planning, in the Sterling Tower as well, to help you do get the advisory on which you want to take the alert, or you may not want to take the alert, but that probably may alert a situation at your client side. So very important input from our side, which is helping global consumer organizations and even a lot of organizations in India to plan their businesses. Priyanka, can I request you to move to the next one? Now, having talked about data sets, so just this is pretty much a summary. So can we help you predict demand? Yes, we can. I mean, the aftermath of the cyclone, which has been seen in Northeast, also in Bangladesh, and some part of West Bengal, the demand of essentials will go up because everyone needs essential. There might be a bit of panic. There would be a supply issue. So one has to see which are the inundated areas, how that supplying decision has to be made, how the stocking decision has to be made, and most importantly, how do you plan for safekeeping of these goods while they are on the move? Are they in the safe supply chain or not? I mean, would you want to plan for a go down which might be in an inundated area? So today, it's important for next 5 days. How would you predict demand, optimize the supply chain? And then, well, I wish we can delight all of them, but the least delight is that no one goes starving, everyone has food to eat. So this is something which really becomes essential. And then the reason I'm giving you Amphen example is that, our authorities do a great job, with a lot of this data and planning, because with their experience of managing such events, people like NDRF are very well aware on what actions to be taken. But again, in all these areas, when you are planning, the weather data comes very handy. So we produce historic weather data, current and forecast. I mean, all those data sets go into these systems based on the requirement you would want to address, based on the goods and products you're selling, to plan for that. So Priyanka, can I request you to move to the next one? I think it's got struck. Okay. Okay. So again, we can go a bit in detail, but on an eye chart. So data, again, when we move to supply chains beyond the ground. So now weather affects flights, weather affects rail transport, weather affects roads getting inundated and local movements. So again, during such times, how do you track road weather? You may have a very essential medicine moving across 500 miles, or how do you plan to ensure that there's no risk to the movement of the truck in case there's a storm surge or a flood? You want to ensure that the geotagged truck is well accounted for, and the driver is well equipped to be aware what's going on. Similarly, when we look at other modes of travel, we have airlines which will probably not travel not take flight during such pandemic or due to a bad weather scenario. But there may be opportunities and pockets for skies getting cleared up and ability to move the administration to accommodate things. Again, the right weather data, which is highly probable to be true on ground, is something which helps you to plan for and plan around it. So we definitely recommend our clients to look at these scenarios, and some of them who are familiar always use this, but these are the newbies and the changing world's arena as we see. We'll move to the next slide, Priyanka. So this is a good chart on alerts. So we track government alerts, and we have various kind of dashboards which are available for logistics, all across airline and road traffic, as I said, and also marine traffic to a certain extent around the coast. So we have those dashboards which are available for people who are in command, who are planning this, doing the lorry planning, flight planning, and they can use this for being well alerted so that there's no time wasted. So that's just graphics around that screen capture. We'll move to the next one, Priyanka. So this is again some charts on how granular we can get to, when it is an hazardous situation like what you're seeing. There are various, ways by which we get data. So we get data from a big sensor network we have, right from weather stations, we have data from various satellites, government-owned data sets, global data sets which are available in free domain. And we take all this data and use our historical data to sort of figure out what's going to happen in next few hours. And the IBM graph is the model. You could search for IBM graph. You will get a lot on Google. With IBM graph, what really we are able to build an hourly-based forecast for India, which is extremely valuable in any kind of those businesses. So our ability to sense, compute, and then deliver the forecast is really unique with IBM graph. We'll move on to the next chart, Priyanka. Okay, so this is again a chart on how does this AI works in our scenario. So what we've done is really, a mid forecast is always done using systems, and of course there's a human loop in that. So over here, what we're depicting to you is how do we arrive at a probability of effective challenge for our consumers. So let's say someone has a trucking business. Now, what is the high probability that 10-ton truck can move on a certain road which is observing a storm, or a lorry of certain tonnage can really move in a certain situation? So we help with our probabilistic forecast, which is embedded in our operations dashboard, as well as is available on data to be pulled into any supply chain solution to help planning for that, so that what's the risk of sending a trolley at a certain point to a certain destination, and rather plan around it if at all there's a storm expected, so that the alerts are visible to your drivers and they can stop by before the storm arrives and hold on their travel until the storm passes and they can move on. So that's a good depiction to give you the probability part of that. We'll move to the next, Priyanka. So this is again a similar chart, in case there's a delay in departure. So what you see on the map is you see the blue color road, you see inundation, which is in green, yellow, and red. So the red is most intense, that's the highest rainfall. Orange is lesser, and the green is just the rainfall. So with our dashboard, we can configure basis the lorry you may have and the travel, the plan for lorries to move on. We can help you, indicate what is the right time to go on which part of the road in the journey, and when to stop by and move on. So, when this red storm strikes, when you see on the left side, this red storm, which is probably 20 mm of rain at an average, we wouldn't want a lorry to be moving at that time because we don't know the inundation which may occur. So it's better for it to stop by for maybe an hour and then cover up the distance later. So we'll move to the next one, Priyanka. So in a nutshell, I mean, weather is predictable. It is something you can plan with. It's dependable. We have clients in India using it in a variety of sectors. So all what Shashank and Priyanka said about using our supply chain solutions, weather becomes a very important piece, and more and more as we work, it is becoming high in quality and high in trustworthiness, if I were to say. I normally say that our forecast is so accurate these days that we can also advise you when and when not to carry your umbrella, either for rain or for heat. Thank you.
Thank you, dear speakers, for all the insights that you've shared. Since we are short on time, quickly running to the Q&A round and quickly taking 2 questions. Request you to please be concise with your answers. The first question says, what is the size of the industry this model will be useful for? The attendee wants to ask if we can use such AI-based analysis for unorganized industry.
Shashank, you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that. I thought Priyanka was answering. Yeah. So I think right now, I think if you look at most of these in terms of the subscription-based format, cloud-based format, I would say these kind of solutions are now available for irrespective of the size of the industry. And I think in terms of the this, and it's also customized by scale and size. So I think most of the solutions are built to perform by appetite. So I don't think we are restricted by scale or size.
Sure, sir. The next question is, when SCI is integrated with existing applications, would data be on the SCI platform on cloud, or it would leverage data within the enterprise?
Yes. So yes, the data will be on cloud, but that will be a very subset of data that is related to your business metrics. That kind of gives you an overall view. So all the data need not be on the cloud on SCI.
Sure, ma'am. Quickly taking one last question. The question says, is the demand forecasting at SKU level? So the attendee says, typically we see very sparse data when SKU counts are very large. So how do you do the demand prediction in such a case?
Yeah, so the demand prediction models will be doing at a category level of the items and not really at each SKU level, because obviously there'll be hundreds and thousands of SKUs. So it kind of takes into consideration the item categories, and for that and then it passes and then it expands it to the items under that category.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you, dear speakers, for the answers. Thank you, Mr. Rao, Mr. Goyal, Mr. Lang, for joining us here. I'm equally grateful for all our attendees for being with us here today. Have a great day, stay connected, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.